Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 12 of the Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls. This episode is entitled Gods of War, How to Navigate the Bitcoin Cycle Waves Proactively Without Running Riot. This Crypto Hipsters compilations is based on 4 conversations I had from season 6 through 8, 2 from season 6, 1 from season 7, and 1 from season 8. These podcasts basically talk about everybody's favorite topic in crypto, Bitcoin. However, we don't talk about price. We don't talk about price go up. We talk about some of the things that not a lot of people are talking about. So this conversation first starts off with my conversation with Seamus Rocca, who is the CEO at Xapo Bank. We spoke in October 2023 during season 6, and we talked about why Bitcoin native Xapo Bank members are using Bitcoin as a retirement investment product. Second, I spoke to Edward Mehrez in April 2024, season 7. He is the co-founder at Arrow Markets, and we spoke about how to ride the Bitcoin halving wave using investing techniques that everyone should know. That's a very insightful podcast. Third, I spoke with the CEO, Sheldon Bennett, and COO, Steve Eliscu, who are at the DMGBlockchain solutions. And we spoke about ordinals, optionality, and taking a pragmatic approach to building out the Bitcoin mining stack. And that was from January 2024, also season 6. And then my final component of this compilation was an episode, podcast episode I had in March 2025 during season 8 with Clem Chambers, who's the founder of aNewFn. And we spoke about why the next crypto winter and a Bitcoin price drop to $60,000 instead of the $110,000 it is or $103,000 is right now is in the cards and what to do about it. So these 4 make up this wonderful new Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls episode 12, Gods of War. My podcasts are available on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, iHeartRadio, anywhere you want to listen to your favorite podcasts. Enjoy this compilation, and I'll see you at the end. As you have made a shift from most people want to go and have institutional clients. You want retail clients, right? Yeah. What are the why is that? And what are the forces that are driving retail adoption of crypto that make it that way?
Yeah. Well, I think the institutional business and the retail business are 2 very different animals, right? And the institutional business, is very much a B2B business, and you're trading an asset class, and you got loads of financial instruments. Of course, at the moment everyone's talking about Bitcoin ETFs and Bitcoin futures and derivatives, and that's kind of what the institutional space will do, which is trade the asset between each other, trying to figure out ways how to make money, make it accessible to other institutions and what have you. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? But Wences and I had sat down, and I remember that conversation. It was in Chile, of all places, and said, "Well, is that what we got into this business for?" And I said, "Well, from my perspective, no. I left a retail bank because it was a very big traditional retail bank, and I wanted to work in fintech and leverage technology and improve financial services, financial freedom. Just sort of take banking to the next level." And for Wences, it was exactly the same thing. For him, it was personal. He's Argentinian. He's seen hyperinflation many times over his life, and people losing all of their savings and all of their wealth to that hyperinflation. So for him, he discovered Bitcoin well before me. For him, it was almost like a life mission. And for me, it was just, well, what's going to get me out of bed in the morning is something that's going to be life-changing for the people that it touches and that are involved in this space. And that's not the institutional space. That's just more of traditional financial services. That's not innovation, in my view. That's just, okay, we have all these asset classes and financial products today. There's this new thing called Bitcoin. It's interesting. So let's put it into our suite of products and trade it with one another. Nothing wrong with that, but I've done that before. That didn't motivate me to sort of build Xapo Bank and build a product and build a bank that solves a pain point for real people like you and me, which is being able to take control of our own investment strategies, being able to spend our Bitcoin freely whenever we want to, without having to take it out from under the mattress on some sort of hardware device where we're storing our keys, right? I wanted to be able to transact with the financial world in a way that we're all accustomed to with that freedom and sleep well at night. And I thought, well, this is a product that people will want. This is a product that other people will need. And I think that's much more motivating, Jamil, solving people's pain points than building an institutional product.
What you said there actually goes into my next question, because it's commonly known for those in crypto that, not your keys, not your crypto. I think we all experienced that by putting our money into, FTS or anywhere else that went belly up, or, so why is it important to have a regulated bank, like Xapo Bank, store your crypto instead of doing self-storage through your own wallet?
Yeah, I think, look, we kind of touched upon it before a little bit. I think you've got to respect people's views, right? I'm not here to try and convince anybody. If somebody thinks that, self-custody is the way to go, not your keys, not your coins. I've met many of those kind of, people with that mindset, and I respect it. I understand it completely. But most of those people tend to be quite technical, as in, they understand Bitcoin. They're technical enough that they can set up their own MetaMask or Ledger accounts and link it with the latest technology, and they're quite technical. That's not going to lead, in my view, not lead to mass adoption, right? My mum's not going to do that, right? My wife isn't going to do that. People who aren't technically savvy, and most of us are not technically savvy to that degree, are not going to go through that pain to be able to figure out how to store your own coins, keep them secure, and then transact on the day that you need to.
What are the factors driving Bitcoin's volatility based on past halvings, economic or macroeconomic conditions, right? And market psychology?
Yeah, great questions. Bitcoin halving, it's an interesting phenomena, and we're seeing it play out. It's not one of those things that just happens right at the halving. So even though we're talking about it now, 4 days after, 5 days after, whenever the podcast is going to come out, it is something that plays out. If you look at the last 3 instances of it, something that the narrative says, at least, that it plays out over the span of a year or more. So these things in the past 3 that have happened, and there's been 3, and there's been one in 2012, one in 2016, one in 2020. Those 3 were preceded by a super cycle that lasted about a year and 3 months on average. Okay, so this thing, in those super cycles, that I didn't come up with that term, but in research they've come up with this term called super cycles. The thing really pumps, Bitcoin really pumps over that full time period, and because of that you also get things like massive adoption, et cetera, et cetera. I would attribute that more to the price pumping than anything about the halving. Now, why is it tricky? Why is the halving really something that's hard to count on? Well, I come from a quant background, and if you tell any quant, hey, I have 3 data points in the past, I want to create a trading strategy based on 3 data points, that's going to be a really hard sell for anyone in there. Now, I understand it creates a super cycle, right? So it's like a long duration of stuff, but really the event, there's only 3 of those events that have happened in the past. Not just that, but from a macro perspective, really leveraging that, what I used to do, my background. In 2012 and 2020, we had massive TradFi liquidity injections from the Fed and from other countries. In 2012, we were still in the midst of quantitative easing, and the EU was like pushing like crazy. They were going through their own problems, and they were pushing in liquidity, pushing in funding, buying all debt. That was happening during 2012. In 2020, we then had COVID with all the massive stimulus that happened. Of course, there was an initial dip, but then that was quickly pretty much reversed in the traditional markets. And so 2 out of those 3 were, you have these confounding factors, these things that are really pumping markets. You can't really attribute it to just halving anymore there. So that's where it gets really subtle. And this time, I know a lot of people are saying this too, but this time really feels different because of the 6 month just mega bull run that we had prior to the halving. So a lot of people, everyone knows that the halving is going to come. Of course, they knew it in 2012 and 2016, 2020. Now, even more people know about it, I would argue. So there is a big argument that this thing is already priced in, and we don't also have the best macro conditions from the liquidity perspective. You can say that there's strong, quote unquote, strong fundamentals, things like, there's higher productivity, higher job growth, et cetera, et cetera. Of course, there's still these recessionary vibes for basically mostly probably because of inflation and cost of living increases. That is not coming down so well. The Fed is having a very tough time bringing that down to their 2% target. We just got print recently that it's at 3.5%. And what does the Fed like to do when that happens? Well, they like to raise interest rates. So especially when they see that the economy is doing well in other aspects, they say, okay, we got to really tamp down the hot inflation. We got to be more hawkish. And so when that happens, the markets get hammered.
So I want to go back to something you said a little bit earlier, and you said that there's modern technologies. And when I think of modern technologies, I think of AI, I think of quantum, I think of other rapid innovations in semiconductors, right? How is that all going to affect the future of Bitcoin mining? And will Bitcoin be obsolete by these innovative advancements, or will they be an added bonus to the Bitcoin mining infrastructure and operations?
It's a great question. I think there's lots of different ways to answer that one. I think Bitcoin's not going anywhere. I think this idea of having, a digital asset that is, I'll call quasi-government regulated, depending on how you look at it, or not government regulated. I think there's a lot of people that like that. I think that, corporate America is coming to accepting it as a digital asset that, they'll have the right governance to bring to their customers. I think that, as Stephen said, people are looking at it as another asset among others that you can put into your investments and feel that there's going to be, a good chance for growth on it. It is one of the few, and probably maybe the only one, that hasn't had, a hacking or a theft or whatever, something large that you would say, oh, this doesn't work. Unlike Ethereum, well, there's a reason why there's Ethereum Classic. So, so it's done quite well. And as it continues to grow and the hash rate continues to grow, its resilience gets stronger and stronger. So we always thought of Bitcoin as, by owning Bitcoin, you're kind of investing in the most secure layer of technology there is in the world. And who wouldn't want that? So that's a great thing. What the world of AI and quantum are two different things. We see, AI potentially growing faster as a business than Bitcoin. And what I mean by that is that the demand for AI is a little more general than perhaps the demand for Bitcoin as an asset. But at the same time, we kind of see AI is a bit expensive right now to get into that business. It's very, very expensive equipment. There aren't a lot of manufacturing for it. It's sort of like crypto a little while ago, where the price of a Bitcoin miner was inflated extremely high because there's so much demand. AI has the same thing, and we think that'll flatten out in the future. But the actual market size of it is going to be quite large. Bitcoin, we believe, will be quite large over time as well. But yeah, it's really hard to say, where each are going, but I think both are staying, obviously. Quantum is a weird one. The way the cryptography works in crypto, or I'm not in crypto, but in Bitcoin, because there's lots of different cryptos out there. It's sort of quantum resilient. There is a mechanism within the Bitcoin core to change the coding of Bitcoin. So I think that if something would happen, out in the future, that would be a technology gain that you could, start breaking the blocks using quantum technology. I think the community would react quickly and make it quantum resistant or change things.
Yeah, nobody's going to just rewrite the chain, and people are just going to sit around and let it happen. It's just not going to happen that way.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be resistant. I don't worry about quantum. It came up a few years ago, but I don't think it's really something that's on the forefront of the things that the Bitcoin core people are trying to manage. Obviously AI would have a hard time trying to win a block. You'd have to have a lot of AI power. I think the cost of doing that would be more than the block win. So just because the way that the technology works and the memory and how it computes is completely different than how an ASIC miner operates. So
yeah,
I don't.
Our big concern with AI is just so much money is going into AI. If you think about NVIDIA, Wall Street expects it to be $100 billion company, and there's just, with the whole entire Bitcoin mining equipment market, it's just a few $1 billion likely to be this year.
My other point I want to challenge you on is this. You said there's nothing new this cycle. I see something new. It might not be new to everybody, but I see the use and application of AI agents, right? And people are using those AI agents to do trades a bit of crypto and Bitcoin, right? So, and it's kind of exploding, So what's the role of AI agents, and then how are they going to help maybe keep us out of a bear market?
Well, first of all, there's a major problem with AI in financial markets. And that is they only work in inefficient ones. And of course, you could say that crypto is a pretty inefficient market, and it has been incredibly inefficient. Do you remember the good old days when you could go on one exchange and buy it on one exchange and sell it on another for a better price? Well, try that today. Yeah. So the way that markets work is they make themselves more and more efficient because of things like AI agents. Now, those AI agents, so-called, that's all over the stock market for the last 25 years. It's called algo trading. It's called high frequency trading, but actually it's high velocity trading. But that's just a split in atoms for you. And if you want the inefficiencies in the American stock market are so tiny. What the people who make money in that game do is they find like 30 inefficiencies, and if they put them all together, they make a little bit more money than the cost of transaction. But they don't do it with one, because one is the only reason it's there in the first place is you can't trade it because you spend more money getting that inefficiency than you do from the inefficiency. So I can't trade this inefficiency because it's worth 10 cents and it costs me 30 cents to do it, right? So what you have to do is you have to find 4 10-cent inefficiencies, because its cost of trading is 30 cents. So you're making 40, it costs you 30, you make 10, right? That's how razor thin. I think actually they look for like 10 now, but how razor thin the inefficiencies are in the equity markets. And if you build all these wonderful AI agents that can make money, well, funny enough, people can make a better one, or an AI can learn from the AI and cut that guy out. It will preempt it, and as you preempt it, so that disappears. I used to do this for a living, and one of my several. And if you find an inefficiency over about 9 months, you can just see it just slowly disappear. Yeah, and everybody's trying to find out what it is that you're doing, including your broker. And he goes, information flow. Boop, inefficiency gone. Yeah. So AI agents for trading, first of all, if it's an efficient market, it won't work. Now, it will work half the time and it will fail half the time. So if you're an optimist, you'll only see the wins and you won't see the losses, or you won't feel about the losses. It's the same with gamblers in Vegas. Oh, I love loads of gambling. Yes, you do. No, I went last time. I made money. Did you? Oh, yes. Well, how much did you make? Oh, I lost 4,000. Ah, okay. But the time before, yeah. And then you've got the situation where it's 50-50, black and red, and there's no greens on there, but you keep having to pay a little bit to play. Are your trading costs. So you've got same amount of wins, the same amount of losses, but your trading costs, and ooh, your money goes, right? So AI agents on the web, Web3, or whatever you want to call it, wherever you're doing it, yeah, in trading, that's a hard old game. Getting it to book your hotel at the best possible price, which is highly valuable. Now that is going to be a good application. All the other things that AI agents can do and be paid to do using crypto, that's a massive opportunity. But there tends to be this, I think it's a limiting feature of crypto. Everybody's looking to get rich quick on some financial transaction, whereas that's just the tip of the spear, actually. But there's everything else behind that can add massive value. And, rather than, I mean, who up to very recently wouldn't make a ton of money out of crypto? I mean, certainly if you ride it all the way up and all the way down again, then you rode it all the way up, you're still making a load of money. And the hell that is the winter is replaced by the heaven that is the summer and the autumn and all that malarkey if you buy and hold forever. But at some point, that forever rise ends. Has to. It's just mathematics.
Everybody, that was Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls, episode 12, Gods of War, how to navigate the Bitcoin cycle waves proactively without running riot. Listen to the podcast in their entirety. It's filled with alpha. Let me know your thoughts. What do you think about, Xapo stance? Where do you think, our markets is headed? Where do you think DMGBlockchain Solutions stacks up now against some of the top competitors in the space? And what do you see as Clem Chambers' prediction that Bitcoin is going to fall to 60 grand? That would be max pain, wouldn't it? Hopefully that doesn't happen. But if it's in the cards, what is your plan? What's your contingency plan? Let me know your thoughts. All right, check us out. I have a bunch of new Crypto Hipsters Curtain Calls coming your way. This was episode 12 out of potential 67. And these are all wonderful podcasts I've had from season 6 to 8. So please tune in and join me next time. Thank you.